Hey guys, Curtis here. We hit over 300 subscribers, so I'm making a short little video of kind of a way for you guys to know me a little bit more and for me to kind of say thank you and all that stuff. This time, once we hit 300, I'm doing a top 10 list of my top 10 fighting games that are non-Tekken. And so these are going to be accumulation of since I've been very little to even today. But all these, if it was ever the opportunity to play them, I wouldn't hesitate, and I would just really like playing them. Most of these I haven't played at a tournament level, just kind of at a friendly local gatherings or anything else. Some of these got me into tournaments, and so I'll share a little bit of not only what game it is, a little bit about the game, and then what character or team that I like to do with that game. So without further ado, let's jump in. So the first game, so coming in at number 10, is actually Gundam Wing, the Endless Waltz. This was a Super Famicom game. I did not own a Super Famicom, however, it was during the 90s in which there was emulators kind of all over the place, and this is how we were able to play this game, in which, if you look at the graphics now, it looks just really ugly, but it had some really cool moments, not only from a fighting game perspective, but also Gundam Wing was super popular at that age, so it was really cool to take our characters and kind of use them in a fighting game scenario. This is way before Smash Brothers or any of those kind of collection fighters. There were like Dragon Ball Z fighting games out, but at that time they weren't very good. And so this was kind of our anime fix in which we were able to fight. Standard, everyone has a health bar, but underneath that you have kind of a power bar in which you can use special abilities and you regenerate that bar the more damage that you block. Or if you fully land your super, which costs 200 energy out of that 300, you could actually recover most of it back, and so like you could snowball out. This game also involved like kind of double jumps and dashes, kind of way before the curve, and even air blocks. And so this was one of the games that instituted higher vertical kind of maps in which battles would happen nowhere near the floor. It just had a really cool feeling, a lot of cool mechanics. And it was related to the Gundam anime, which at that time was really good. The main character that I played in this game was Heavy Arms. He was my favorite kind of guy. Just a complete arm that's dedicated to a giant minigun and just kind of blast away. Really liked it, really solid. It's a little slower pace of watching older videos compared to today's standards, but really like it. So number 10, Gundam Wing, Endless Waltz. Coming in at number 9 is actually King of Fighters 13. Now, some of you will say it's 98, which is the best King of Fighters. That's your opinion. I didn't really get into King of Fighters until probably 2002, kind of that edition. And I played a little bit, but it didn't really grab my attention. But it was actually 13 that really grabbed my attention from a graphic-wise. It looked really pretty. The combo system was actually pretty solid, and there was a lot of just different meters that you had to take care of in order to be successful. And it also followed the standard King of Fighters, which you pick 3 fighters, and they do one-on-one fights in kind of King of the Hill style of gameplay, as most of you know. But it was just really fun of managing that. And the one thing I really loved is the super meters, in which it goes up to level 3 at your first character, and then level 4, and then level 5. That puts such an interesting mechanic of choosing your team of, okay, well, this character is heavily meter dependent, so I'm going to put him in my last slot, compared to I'm picking a character that doesn't really need a lot of meter, so we'll put him in my first slot. And it just really put a whole different kind of perspective going into the game before you play it in kind of that team creation. And the team that I preferred in 13 was Kula, Terry, and then Hua as my meter kind of abuser. It may not be the best team, and I really wasn't good at this game. I didn't really get to chance to play it since my roommates at the time really weren't into it, and so I just kind of mainly played practice mode, played online a few times, but nothing super serious. But this game was tons of fun. Would really like to play it again. So coming in at number 9 was King of Fighters 13. Coming in at number 8, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Really like this over Marvel vs. Capcom 3. We'll see how Infinite and Dragon Ball Z Fighters is basically the successor of this. But the amount of time and quarters at the arcade that I burned through playing this game is a little bit ridiculous. As you all know, it takes the Marvel Universe characters, mashes them up with the Capcom Universe, and they go head-to-head in massive, super high combos. When this came out, it was during the era where combos were just starting to get super popular, and so Capcom especially was starting to make these games in which your hit meter would like climb to ridiculous amounts. And even though there was like the superhero fighters and Marvel 1 that started to do it, it was really Marvel 2 for me that really capitalized on it. They fixed a lot of the errors, and while there was some balance issues, it was just a really fun game of being able to use support characters to jump in to help you with a single move or to extend combos in which you had your super meters and everything else. Super solid game, was tons and tons of fun. And the team that I usually played as was Storm, Captain Cool, and then Sentinel. It's a pretty classic one. But it was just tons of fun to play. In the arcade, this was kind of the go-to game for a lot of times. And because of how flashy it was, it just attracted so many people just to play it. So there was always someone new that you were able to play with, and there was always veterans around, or at least the arcades that I hung out with, in which we just play this over and over and over again. So coming in at number 8 was Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Number 7 is Virtua Fighter 1. I was debating between Virtua Fighter 1 and Virtua Fighter 2. The graphics don't bother me at all. I actually prefer the old school polygon, just probably because that's my childhood, in which we were playing these very low graphic games in which we were able to do battle. But why Virtua Fighter was really interesting at the time was kind of the ring out mechanic. So very similar to how sumo wrestlers are, in which you kind of do battle, and one of the ways in sumo, like how you win, is you can either throw them out or you can kind of pin them. And that's kind of what Virtua Fighter did, and then it took a lot of different kind of traditional martial art techniques, in which there was a ninja, there's a wrestler, there's a karate champion, and so on and so forth, a wushu master, I believe. And then you would fight, and this was one of the first kind of 3D fighters in which it was super interesting. So far, we've talked about 2D only. This was kind of the first big 3D fighter that we got our hands on. And then, of course, Tekken. But it was just a really fun how it worked, and especially just how the battles went, and the whole innovative of you could be at full health, but as soon as you step off the map, then the match is over. And during this game, I played Wolf, and I tried to abuse this a lot since Wolf had throws in which he literally would just toss your opponents off. So rather than kind of doing juggle combos, which at that time either I was terrible at or didn't understand, and they may not have even been in Virtua Fighter 1, I'm just going to assume they were, but I didn't really know how to do those at that young age, and so I picked Wolf, and I would just try to throw my opponent around and do everything else. So coming in at number 7 is just standard Virtua Fighter. Now coming in at number 6, this might be a shock for a lot of people. I really, really love Virtua Fighter Online. I've been playing it for years. I can't even remember the year that I started. And the biggest unfortunate thing is I haven't really been able to find anyone to play it. Oh, I've tried to get my roommates to play it tons and tons of time, and they play with me up to a certain point and then just kind of stop. Since one of the unique features of Dungeon Fighter Online, there's a giant PvE, so player versus environment mechanic, in which you have to progress through this story, and you actually have to level up. You have to start learning new abilities and everything else, and there's tons of abilities that you can learn and use in this PvE environment. And then, of course, there's the PvP in player versus player. The player versus player, to my knowledge, is much more popular in Korea. No huge surprise there. But it just looked always super fun. It's just super interesting. I've been playing Dungeon Fighter since kind of the first time where it was kind of its standalone thing, and then the servers lost all their money, and then Steam picked it up, and then Steam dropped it, and they picked it up from another third party, and then Steam now has it again. And every single time I've maxed out a full character and played, I haven't done the pay to play, which that's one very unfortunate thing about this game is how you acquire different items. You do have to put financial investment. I never really did that, but I never did top PvP type of stuff just because I liked doing kind of the dungeon crawlers, and every once in a while I would do PvP as a fun thing. But even just watching like top level Koreans play this game was just super, super interesting to me. And for characters, my first character was a female fighter. I then learned the knight when she came out. I dabbled with the Slayer and the Mage, but I did not like the Mage. I did not like Gunners. I really like that up close and personal. And just most recently on this updated Steam, I'm playing the Demonic Lancer. He just has a good mixture of just pure melee damage, but he also has some really good reach with his lance abilities, knockups, and then of course really damaging combos. So it's a super fun game to play, and especially sometimes when you don't want to do PvP, you can go and just run some dungeons and everything else, and you do have to collect items and so on and so forth. But coming in at number 6, Dungeon Fighter Online, completely underrated in my opinion. Would really like to see it definitely a lot more. Coming at number 5, this was of origin stories for tournament play. This was a big influence. Probably Capcom SNK 2 and Tekken and a little bit of Street Fighter 2 were my gateway into tournament play. And Capcom vs SNK 2, I had friends that were from California that played against really good players in California, and they brought up the idea of, there's actual competitive tournaments in fighting games. And I went, what? And so he was always much better than me. His name was Hai, and he just always crushed me, but it was a super interesting system of jumping in and playing Capcom SNK 2. So again, like Marvel vs. Capcom, they took characters from the Capcom universe, took characters from the SNK universe, and then they go head to head. What was interesting is you also picked a groove or your meter, in which there were, I think, 6 different grooves that you can pick. And then you also picked a team of 3, but rather than King of Fighter system of everyone is just 1, 2, 3, there was a quote-unquote ratio system in which you would say one of your characters has more health and does more damage compared to the other 2 characters. You could also just play one character at a level 4, but it rarely happened. Most tournament plays and how we played it was always 2-1-1 of kind of the ratio system. But it had a lot of interesting mechanics that you were able to bring from other fighting games, all kind of crammed in this one. And my team that I probably ran the most, and again, I never was good at this game, but what I really liked was I picked a groove. Balrog, Kim, and then Sakura were kind of my main team. Especially in my local meta, it was just a lot of fun. I did a lot of shenanigans with Balrog, and he's just a beast. Kim is really annoying, and then everyone kind of knows a groove Sakura of just how obnoxious she is. But that's kind of Capcom SNK 2, so that came in at number 5. Really super solid game, tons of fun. Coming at number 4, Soulcalibur 2. Again, a Namco game, kind of a lot of times it's known as Tekken Light, since a lot of things are a little bit easier. But again, this brought into the whole weapon. So far, all the games we've talked about, other than Gundam Wing, which was robots fighting each other, everything has been hand-to-hand. Every once in a while, you would have a character like Billy with a staff or something like that, but this was pure weapon-based 3D combat. In Soulcalibur 2, it's kind of not even disputed. This is the best of the Soulcaliburs, and I have to agree from a balance-wise and everything else. Nothing was too complicated, nothing was too weak. It just felt super solid to play. The amount of times, and this was the first time in the arcade that I actually saw that you could go into practice mode. So you would put in your quarters and it would say, would you want to do the story mode, or do you want to do practice, or do you want to face a human type of thing? And when I was little, I was like, why would you ever pay for practice? Why don't you always just play against people. Now, as you see my videos, I'm in practice mode a lot. And Soulcalibur 2 is just super solid. Would really love to play this a lot more. But I know with the new Soulcaliburs, I really haven't been drawn in. Basically, Soulcalibur 3, my interest started to fall off. Soulcalibur 4 and 5, like I bought the game, we played it with my roommates. My roommates were way more into this game than I was. I knew the frame data of certain things, but I never really played it at a competitive level. I just had fun with it. But Soulcalibur 2, definitely I tried to take it seriously, and the main character that I played during this was Maxie. He just seemed to have a very good mixture of speed and agility. As you see, a lot of my characters have that aspect to it. And he also just had a weird shenanigans. So like he was kind of a mixture of Eddie Gordo from Tekken and a little bit of just like, he just did weird things with nunchucks, and he was just a very close range guy. Soulcalibur also did have the knockout mechanic that we talked about in Virtua Fighter, but just super solid game overall. So coming in at number 4, Soulcalibur 2. Coming in at number 3, it's For Honor. Now I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, and I may or may not deserve it, but this is just a super streamlined game. If you play like Dominion and the weird mechanics where like each player has a wonky arrow shot, or like they can throw basically a Molotov cocktail or call in a arrow strike, it gets a little weird. But if you're talking about the pure duels, which is 1v1, or the brawls, which is 2v2, which is my preferred way of playing it, like it's just really cool. So rather than just fighting you one-on-one, you and a partner could be fighting another partner. So 4 people are playing at the same time. And that interaction is super, super interesting to me, because you have tactics in which instead of just one versus one, you could have one of your partners run away from his opponent to help do a 2v1, and you hope to eliminate them, and then you have another 2v1 situation. The mechanics overall are super simple, in which there's 3 regions of combat, a top, a right, and a left, and then you have weak attacks and strong attacks. Each character has mini combos that you can do in like the duel and brawl mode, not the fancy whatever abilities. And it's just super solid, because it really just tests your knowledge of the game and over simple mechanics. And there are some overpowered characters. There are better characters than others, and you do have to know some matchup analysis with that. But it's just super solid and super fun. And what I really love about this game is if you lose, I don't think I've ever gotten angry or upset about this game. Like other fighting games, like we can get our rage and like just scream and everything else. This game, like, it feels engaging enough that like I'm like, oh, okay, sweet, we're playing a fighting game. But if I lose, I'm like, okay, I'll just go again. There's never been a huge like, oh man, like it was total BS. I blocked that, and like I've never gotten up and screamed or hit the wall or anything else. Like just super solid. And there are some updates. It had a very rocky start, I know, when it launched the servers, and I haven't played this game now in probably 2 months, basically, since Tekken came out. But I still really like this. I would really like the community to kind of grasp on it more, especially incorporating the brawls, because that's a very interesting thing to have. Almost like how when Street Fighter and Tekken came out, we were experimenting with kind of the two players versus 2 players. This game could completely easily incorporate that combat. And of the characters that are released right now, I keep going back to Orochi, which is kind of the assassin samurai. I play other classes, but Orochi is kind of my go-to when I do duels and brawls. He just is a very good mixture of speed and counter strikes, and especially because I really like that interaction rather than just block, kind of playing lazy, if you will. Like you're doing like just-in-time reversals in which you counter and everything else. And you have this speed, so you have a little more diversity of how you're going to engage in combat with that. So coming in at number 3 is For Honor. Number 2, Street Fighter 2 HD Remix. There's yeah, you can give me crap for liking the HD remix. I do think Sterling did a fantastic job of this. At that time, two of my other roommates were super into Super Turbo 2, in which that's actually how I met my roommates before we lived together. And then, hey, we're the only people at Illinois State playing Street Fighter 2. Why don't we all live together? And I mean, we played the shit out of that game. And then HD Remix came out, and for us at least, it felt like it fixed a lot of like the kind of broken mechanics and broken shenanigans. And for one of my roommates, it just looked super gorgeous. Just super improved sprites and everything else. And it just seemed so much better. I know that there's still some issues with some characters. I know a lot of top tier like T-Hawk players complained to Serlin that they actually made T-Hawk worse, which I don't know how that's possible. But even in HD Remix, I've seen top tier T-Hawk players beat Alex Valle, for instance, when this game was still in sessions. It's not as popular because, to my knowledge, this never got a Japanese release. And as we know, Street Fighter 2 is very dominated by the Japanese market. I think it maybe was released much later on, but at that time, we were on to bigger and better things. But the amount of hours that I've poured into this, I really wish we weren't kind of in the middle of school and everything else, because me and my buddy Victor, we're very certain we could have actually won like some majors, or at least placed in the top 8. We played the spit out of this, and it was tons of fun. And of this game, I still went to Saget. I experimented a little bit with DJ, Ken in this edition. We also nicknamed this Ken Edition just because he had some very wonky properties. But Saget was kind of my go-to guy. He had super great zoning options, and Super 2 chip damage was huge, and also projectiles were just a beast. So I just zoned kind of Sagat. Even though when I played in Evo in 2010, I used E Honda and DJ, just because there was too much of a lay period of practicing with Victor from the time we went, but c'est la vie. So coming at number 2 is Street Fighter 2 HD Remix. It's just a beautiful game, super solid, and it really teaches a lot of just basic fighting game fundamentals. And so now moving on to number 1. It's Samurai Shodown Special, 5 Special. I've wasted so much time playing this. Of all the games, like I've kind of complained, like, oh, I don't have anyone to play with, so I don't play it very often. Or it's just like, oh, I got into this with some people, and then there was a skill gap, blah, 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 blah. I have wasted so much time just playing this game by myself. Like, I don't even really care. I played this on Mugen, or the whatever it's called now, just kind of online servers to play. I play this with myself, I practice, I learn, and what's super interesting about it is kind of one of its meters. So underneath the health bar, it has basically a stamina meter. So if you are attacking too much, your attack damages become less damaging. And that puts a whole different mechanic of how you approach footsies. Since in Street Fighter, you can basically just do low, strong, Serlin, in which you just keep spamming moves, and as soon as it hits, you just on reaction do the on-hit guaranteed combo. But if you try to do that in 5S, you're not going to do any damage. And you also have some kind of hidden features where you can go into like Zen mode, slow everything down, you can increase your damage. Or this game is the only game that I know of this in which you could actually do a seppuku move in which you basically kill your own character, but it actually has a tactical advantage, just like in Street Fighter 3, where if you actually taunted, you would gain a benefit. If you do seppuku moves in 5S, during the next round, you have an added bonus. And so it puts a whole new tactical mind of, do I try to keep winning this round? Do I never give up? Or do I say, okay, you got this round, but next round I'm going to have an improvement, and we'll probably try to tie it up. Or if you were already up 1, you can do that, and now you have an added bonus going into round 3. It also did have super meters similar to previous Samurai Shodown games, and it also had a very extensive kind of library of characters. One of the big things of why it got a lot of negative buzz, and that's why there's a 5 special, is it's super, super bloody and super violent, and the story mode is basically non-existent. It literally is, everyone's going here just to fight and kill each other. Like, they didn't even try to say, like, oh, there's a father-son storyline, or, oh, we want to host this tournament, or anything else, or crazy genetic labs trying to take over the world. No, we're just going to straight up fight and kill each other. And so that got a lot of negative appeal, especially here in the US. To my knowledge, it was more popular in Japan. And luckily, on PlayStation 4, they're coming out with the re-release of this game. And even though I can play it already for free on the GGOP or whatever acronym that is, I'm most likely going to pick this up on PlayStation 4. I'm super psyched of playing this again. Very similar to Soulcalibur. This is another kind of weapons-based game. But like, it has so many intricate fighting mechanics of, like, there's a laydown mechanic, there's rolls, there's dashes, everything else. And there's just so much that you can think about going into the game and preparing it, that I like that theoretical mindset of what to do. And so I'm super excited to have this, and hopefully it pulls in new players, because I would super want to get into this game more. Especially having regular practice partners, because the people that I have played with this, my old roommates, they're like, yeah, it's cool, it's interesting, but it wasn't for them. And so, like, when there's that skill gap, it's not as enjoyable. But in this game, of kind of the character selections, I have the most fun playing Rara, who's kind of the evil kind of twin sister of Nakaru, or whatever the bird chick is. Just because she's super fast. She has a stance in which she can actually ride her wolf, and when she's in that wolf stance, if she misses an attack, it doesn't drain her stamina. So you could do some things of zone control, of whiffing move constantly if they try to move in. The only downside is you don't recover stamina while riding the wolf. And so it puts a very interesting way of how you play a match, of when you jump on the wolf, when you jump off the wolf, and being on the wolf, you can do special cancel moves in which then you bait your opponent into doing, anti-airs or something else, and then as soon as they anti-air, then you punish that. And it's a very hit and run play style, very footsie based, and knowing that the main stamina mechanic is there, I think that's why I really like kind of that hit and run play style. I know playing online, I haven't had a lot of success with her. I've had more success with other characters, but she's just super fun to play. So with that, that was my #1 non-Tekken fighting game. Obviously, Tekken is my favorite. I played it forever. But let me know what you think. What's your top 10 other fighting games, or other top 5 fighting games that you really like? If you didn't like some of my picks, such as Dungeon Fighter Online, or For Honor, or even Gundam Wing, leave it in the comments below. Again, thank you so much for subscribing. I had no preconceived notion that I would even reach 300 subscribers this early, so I really appreciate it. If you like me doing these videos, please comment and subscribe below. We're going to come out with regular Tekken content in the future. So until then, we'll see you guys next time.